Jimmy, can you hear me? Okay, great. Jimmy? Jimmy?
Christine, you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me? Jimmy? Jimmy? Can you hear me? Hello? Jimmy? Jimmy, can you hear me? It's very low. Jimmy? Jimmy?
Christine,
Yes,
you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, good.
Where were you talking from before?
I'll come. I'm coming by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. You're
because I
on.
can't really hear anything.
I muted it.
Good.
Yep. Good. You're good. You're good. Hi, Kit.
Hello. Boy, for some reason, well, never mind, I'm here. All's well that ends well.
In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 6th. Please all rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. The first set of minutes involves the amendment of the minutes of July 14, 2020, which were previously approved on September 1st. The only amendment to the minutes involves the inclusion of a resolution that was adopted that evening by the Township Committee, the text of which was inadvertently omitted and will now be included. I move to amend the July 14, 2020 minutes, previously adopted on September 1st, to now include the erroneously omitted text of Resolution 20-150. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the August 11th Township Committee minutes? So moved. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Reports. We currently have 184 cases of COVID-19 in the township. Essex County is reporting 21,381. 83% have recovered. Please keep in mind that these are cumulative cases, and those residents that have recovered are still in our county. As you all know, Governor Murphy has mandated that masks be worn at all times when social distancing is not possible. Essex County continues to offer free testing for residents multiple times per week. Please register at essexcovid.org. We have extended our outdoor dining on Main Street and will continue to review on a weekly basis as weather changes and as we monitor traffic and school openings. We have numerous restaurants enjoying creative outdoor spacing throughout the township, including the parking lot on Essex and Main, a park foot on Main Street below Millburn Ave, and other private lots. Please be sure to support all our local businesses. Remember to wear your mask at all times in accordance with Executive Order 163 in public spaces when social distancing is not possible. General election on November 3rd is primarily a vote by mail election as per governor orders. We trust that all of you have thus far received your Essex County vote by mail ballot that has been sent to every registered voter. Once you complete your ballot, you have 4 options for returning that ballot. Number 1, the drop box in front of the township building at 375 Millburn Ave, right here. It's open 24 hours. It is monitored by a security camera, and Essex County is collecting those ballots daily. Mail the ballot by the U.S. Postal Service. Ballots must be postmarked no later than November 3rd to be received by the county clerk no later than 8 p.m. on November 10th. Another option, hand deliver your ballot to the Board of Elections in Newark. Fourth option, you may hand deliver your vote by mail ballot to a board worker at your polling location on Election Day, November 3rd from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. When you fill out your ballot, if you're choosing one of the first 3 options, please remember, do not attach the certification flag. The last day to register to vote is October 13th. Essex County permits you to register online, so please visit New Jersey Online Voter. If you are not registered as of yet, you have 1 week to do so. Leaf collection will begin Monday, October 19th. It's scheduled for curbside pickup 3 times per zone between the months of October and December. Leaf collection zones are the same as your recycling and trash pickup. If you need to find out what your zone is, please go to the Public Works pamphlet website on the township website. The farmers market will operate from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesdays during the month of October. Please note that October is the final month for our 2020 farmers market season. Please be sure to visit. On September 30th, Alex McDonald and I attended the Mayor's Council Rawway River Watershed Committee meeting to continue the discussions to address potential flooding in our township. The consensus of the Mayor's Council was to revisit the Orange Reservoir, modifications to its structure, including a bypass, reevaluate the required pool depth, and review the operations in its entirety to provide upstream storage to protect the communities that are downstream. First and foremost, the plan must address any impacts on the quality of Orange's water supply who relies on that reservoir. Who will be responsible for maintaining any facility constructed? Additional discussions will include the appropriate operating model for use as a bypass and the roles involved. The City of Orange has granted approval to consider such a study, and Millburn has shared their support to look at a potential plan. The next steps will be to meet with Essex County to discuss in greater detail, which is currently being arranged in the weeks ahead. That concludes my report. Who would like to begin next? Ms. Burstein?
I have no reports.
Thank you. Ms. Glasgow? No report. Deputy Mayor Kruger?
PSAB is meeting tomorrow night virtually at 7 o'clock. So it's our first evening meeting of the year, so if you have any pedestrian safety issues or want to join that meeting, you can find information on the township.
Thank you.
Mayor, thank you so much. I want to thank the Wyoming Presbyterian Church for their generous food donation to our food pantry. And I just want to remind our residents that we do have a food pantry. If there are any residents that are in need, there's information on our website, and we're very fortunate to have a pantry in our town, and it's available. And so please, please keep that in mind. Our food pantry is actually adjacent to the town hall. We have a small storage facility, and it's pretty well stocked right now. So, but if there's anybody in need, we're moving into the colder weather. Let's not let anybody feel the need. That's all I have. So,
So Richard, who mans that, and who, is that part of the senior citizens group? Like, who decides that, who gets that, who need, who you recommend, somebody, a social worker?
We have a social worker. Our social worker answers phone calls. They take messages during the week. All the phone calls are returned. And I know that Deputy Mayor Krupitz has been helped with it. I know that Romano has been volunteering to help stock the shelves.
And we have Anna Millen, their in-house social worker that is a liaison to families and acts anonymously to protect their confidentiality.
So there's, she's
Yes.
really taking care of it. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have the Environmental Commission. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Falcon, my apologies.
That's all right. Thank you, Mayor. A quick report. The mediation convened by the special master took place yesterday, and the steering committee will be meeting with the township committee in closed session after this meeting to discuss it. Also, Judge Gardner signed an order extending the township's immunity to November 30, and another mediation session will be held in early November. That's all.
I'm sorry, could you just please repeat that date? Was it November 30th? Yes,
It was extended till November 30, yes.
thank you. Here it is. Mr. McDonald?
No report there.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. The Environmental Commission update on the ban of single-use plastics. We now have a presentation from our Environmental Commission Chair, Priya Patel. Thank you, Priya.
Thank you, Mary. You heard, Mary Luna, or will you refer?
Yeah, okay.
All right, so the purpose of today is just to give the township committee members sort of an overview of where we are at since the ordinance was passed last December and went into effect in June. So all of you should have received something in your packet and provided you with kind of an overview of what the larger retailers in town are doing. And for the purposes of informing the public, I can review that, or if you have any specific questions, I can address them.
If you could just maybe speak closer to the mic, so it's going to be on YouTube for people who are watching.
Yeah. So you also received in your packet just an overview of the 6 large retailers, or maybe 5 large retailers in town, and how, what are they doing in terms of their compliance with this ordinance. I wanted to kind of really focus today on 3 of our retailers, CVS, ShopRite, and the Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's just recently started allowing their customers to provide, to bring in the reusable bags. Previously, they were not doing that, but after this Monday, they are starting to allow residents to do that, which is great. CVS, however, is providing the reusable bags, but the reusable bag is provided in plastic. They are charging the fee as per the ordinance, but this is the bag that they're providing. It is made out of 80% post-consumer recycled material, but it's plastic bag nonetheless. And ShopRite is offering this bag as their reusable bag, which is obviously a plastic bag. So it was discussed at the commission to, find a way to really get the retailers in town to really you know, follow the spirit of this ordinance, which was not to penalize them, but really to enforce behavior change, right? So we are proposing an amendment tonight, which would reflect the language that has already been used in Summit, Chatham, Johnson, which are some of the adjacent towns, but other towns also adopted stricter definitions of compliant bad because they were able to foresee some of these, you know, loopholes or ways or workarounds that some of these larger retailers would take. And as you see, we're trying not to focus on our smaller businesses, which have been doing a fabulous job of trying to really adhere to this ordinance. It's really just the retailers in the deeper pockets that are finding violating the spirit of this ordinance. So Ed Hilsenrath, who's on the commission with us, will present the amendment, which is essentially just a more strict definition of the compliant bad. I also want to add that there is a piece of legislation which is sitting on Governor Murphy's desk. It's A 1978 864, and that is proposing a full ban on bags and the polystyrene food pickup containers. It would be an 18-month rollout. It would only provide for straws on request. And this pretty much so far is exactly what we have in our township. So Millburn is really kind of ahead of the curve as far as getting the townships and cities in New Jersey. The proposed legislation will go even further to ban paper bags at all large box stores. It would not ban them at small stores, but that's sort of the additional element that goes one step further than our current ordinance. So I wanted to put that out there, say that it's on the horizon, but you know, as we've known in the past, we generally don't try to wait for president. So, you know, Committeewoman Eglo last year, you know, helped us put this ordinance, bring this ordinance to the forefront of township's attention, and we were able to pass it in December. So we've effectively had, you know, the last 6 months, and then months after that, where this township has really gotten the practice of not using bags. So we think that passing an amendment would be a good idea, even in the event that the state passes this law. I'm going to turn it over to Ed now.
I think Priya touched on most of the big points. I believe everybody has a copy of the amendment that we drafted. And the proposal is to you know, try to match the language that some of our neighboring towns have used to firm up the definition to make it so that loopholes like these don't exist. I will say, looking at what the state legislation is, and it was passed by both houses on September 24th. So you know, we're waiting. Hopefully, the governor will sign it. We don't see why he wouldn't, but you never know. But assuming the governor signs it whenever he does, again, as Priya said, it's an 18 months till it's effective. And upon its effectiveness, it will supersede all local ordinances and legislation. So the state bill, which is, you know, even more restrictive because it includes paper bags as well, will go into effect. And our feeling is we have a great ordinance in place. We don't think that we should wait 18 months to have all of our merchants abide not only by the letter, but by the spirit of it. And our small merchants have done a wonderful job, and we feel like our larger merchants have taken advantage. And we don't believe that's right, and we believe this, as presented, is an easy fix. So we present it to the township to review and let us know. With that, do we have any questions? Or?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ed and Priya, for coming out tonight. And yeah, so we worked really hard on this. It took a couple of years, like nothing goes that fast. And I'm with Assemblyman McKee, and he kept saying, we can't wait for Trenton, so do what you can for your town. And I think our town has really changed behavior. And I think it's been a year. Wait, how long has it been now? March?
December 2019.
Effective, right. So I think it's been definitely successful in changing consumers' behavior. And if this just zeroes it in a little bit more so we don't have these loopholes, And that when Murphy hopefully does sign this sooner than later, we will be more prepared than some of our neighboring towns who not, I mean, there are still towns who haven't passed it, haven't discussed it yet. So I think this is really great, and I thank you for working with the Environmental Commission on this.
We certainly appreciate your support.
Yeah, I'd like to also make a comment. I just want to also thank you for your service. I mean, I think, you know, I think, you know, going into this ordinance, you know, we were all a little bit nervous in terms of compliance and making sure that this would work in our town. And and I understand it's been great, and people are getting in the hang of it. Has anybody gone to the larger retailers to like kind of sit down with management or?
Yeah, for you guys.
I tried to talk to Trader Joe's and King's, but, you know, they'll refer me to corporate.
Pretty much.
So in your estimation, yes, thank you for bringing this up. In your estimation, the big violators, if you will, are ShopRite and the CVS. If you had to categorize in terms of environmental damage, those would be the two that would be the, and those are
And you're
substantial
probably
national.
producing, you know, between the two of them, more paper bags or more plastic bags than the rest of our merchants combined. You know, it's the mall. But certainly in downtown Millburn.
Yeah, I mean, they've effectively replaced one evil with another. So they've gone from a thin-film plastic bag to an even thicker plastic bag, you know, which they're arguing to have it, you know, emblazoned with reusable bags. But to some degree, it's a bit of, you know, greenwashing on their part, because it's still a plastic bag. And we, you know, we had talked when we presented this resolution, or we're working on the resolution, about having stricter language, because Andrick had recommended having a much more defined, specific, strict definition for compliant bag. And we kind of edged away from that, thinking, you know, do we really need to do that? You know,
Part of it hoping that merchants would do the right thing, but by not defining it so strictly that it would give some room for creative solutions or whatnot. And instead what's happened is the opposite. We've had the big merchants, you know, you just go exactly by the letter. You know, I think if we had it to do again, we would have tried to insert that more restrictive language. So
Well, that's what amendments are for, to
that's right.
fix something.
That's right.
Do you know if, I see here the problem is a lot of our residents go to the ShopRite in Livingston that does not have an ordinance, and the ShopRite in Springfield. So it really would be great when it becomes cohesive, the whole state. Do you know if the other ShopRite is so huge, if the ShopRite is down the shore where they have the ordinance uses those yellow bags? Yeah, I can call Bill Stimus and find out. I think if we can do this in our town, we start with our own and work from there.
And by the way, obviously everybody knows, assuming the state goes ahead and Governor Milford signs the bill, they're going to have no choice.
Correct.
You know, it's just that why let them pollute for 18 months more until, you know, the state legislation is effective, you know, as opposed to say change your behavior now.
And other than that, do you think everything is running sort of as planned?
I think our opinion from what we see from other merchants is we're very pleased with compliance. You know, I think I would say, and Priya, you know, correct me if I'm speaking for you, but obviously we're living in strange times. People aren't shopping as much, buying as much, so it's hard to get as much of a census as we necessarily like. If we didn't, you know, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, we would have done more of a job of knocking on every merchant store and saying, what are you seeing? What are you doing? You know, our sample size is less.
Well, PetSmart was one of the retailers that I visited, and they are a large retailer. And they said that they are complying with the ordinance, the spirit of the ordinance, et cetera, and they are giving out paper bags. And the manager, you know, he disclosed to me that they actually cost us 17 cents per bag, but we're selling them for 10. So, you know, we're doing this at a loss, but we're doing it on principle. So there are many, good actors in town and small businesses in town are certainly feeling the pressures of COVID, but they're doing their best to the best of our knowledge.
So if we are in agreement, do we direct Dick to make this something that we want to talk about at the next meeting, to put an amendment out?
I have to tell you, I really haven't been able to hear much of what was said tonight, so I would really like an opportunity to look at this.
What I just asked, Cheryl, was if there's agreement amongst the township committee, what is the next step to put an amendment onto an existing ordinance? And I guess Kit would answer that.
Yes, we can take a look at this and prepare amendments, and I'd be happy to be in touch with whoever can zero in on the elements that we ought to focus on tightening up.
So is there consensus from the township committee to move forward with an amendment to supplement our existing ordinance 2547-19 that would provide with an additional carve out or additional restrictions, if you will, on the use of plastic, and the language set forth in the in your presentation from the Environmental Commission. So that would be my understanding.
So if we do that, we would present it at a meeting, then there would be the normal meeting in between, and then we would have a second meeting. So there would be a chance for public comment. I see someone raised their hand. So there would be a chance for public comment at the first reading, the meeting in between, and then the second reading for passing. So we're not passing it tonight.
Right. We should make sure we invite our, our retailers to comment, invite them, it should be a learning process, and let them come and engage with us if they want to.
And I think in the interim, the Environmental Commission should reach out directly to the two largest perpetrators, if you will, violators, of both CVS and ShopRite, and include that in your fact-finding mission as well to see what their appetite would be.
Can we get a red line, can we get a red line version of their proposed amendment?
Pardon me? This is what we were provided with is a amendment to their.
But it amends the definitions, right?
Right.
Yeah, it specifically amends 2 sections in the.
Right,
ordinance.
right. Can we get a red line version of your amendments?
Yes. We could do that, sure.
Thanks.
So we could have that for the next meeting or the meeting after, depending on your timetable. We have October 20th or November 10th, I believe. Correct, okay. So why don't you circle back and let us know your readiness. Reach out to the retailers in the interim, and then you'll let us know when you're ready to circle back.
And the goal would be to, depending on our meeting schedules and the times, if we're in October, I guess we were talking about essentially by January, hopefully in that. Sounds good.
Thank you for your time.
Yes. Excuse me, does the committee have any other additional questions, or Kim, do you want to add anything that perhaps we missed?
No, I have nothing to add at this point, thanks.
Thank you. Cheryl, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, the truth is I really couldn't hear the presentation.
I'm just going to suggest to everybody to lean into their mics as I am doing now to make sure that you can be heard clearly. And also, just to add to this, you must have this passed by the end of the year. You can't carry over into the next year.
Okay, so that accelerates your timetable.
Yeah, we only have one meeting in November. Do we have 2 functioning meetings in December?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, just sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
We are now at capacity in this room, so anybody who comes in after should go into the conference room in the back.
Two are leaving.
Yeah, we'll need space for other people.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Will you stay, Alex? Two walk out.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. This meeting is also properly noticed as a Zoom webinar for those that cannot attend. If you're watching via YouTube and would like to comment, please refer to the meeting notice for details or call 301-715.
Mayor, sorry, this is the wrong part. We are set up as a Zoom meeting, correct? For those who are attending via Zoom, they can raise their hand, or if
Okay.
they're on the phone, they can hit *6 to participate.
Now or during the announced public comment period. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Borbat. I live on 40 Whitney Road. And I'd like to suggest that in light of the pandemic, that you actually discontinue the, say, non-recyclable ban in the issue, in the interest of public safety. And then, should you not, well, with respect to the issue of making changes, if in 18 months you're expecting a statewide regulation or law, wouldn't it be more appropriate to not force the merchants to commit the funds to an interim approach, but rather just continue as reasonably efficient as you can until that next say law is passed? But primarily, let's worry about health and let's worry about transmission of virus via the people bringing in their own bags.
Thank you.
I'm Maureen Waterbury, and I reside at 17 Park Road. And I just have a quick comment. I seen an item on the agenda, which is Ordinance 2563-20.
Yeah, get close to the mic.
Sorry. I see an item on the agenda, which is Ordinance 2563-20, which I am interested in. Do you intend to hold a second reading and a public hearing on the ordinance later tonight? We have been informed by the township attorney, Kit Falcon, that there would not be a formal consideration of this ordinance tonight, as the planning board has not met for its consistency review.
Yes, I was in touch with the attorney for the group that filed a protest, and I informed him that in light of the fact that the planning board had not had the opportunity to complete their review to determine whether or not the ordinance was consistent with the master plan, that this proceeding would be, this ordinance is going to be considered tonight, and one of the alternatives would be to carry it to October 20th. So there would not be a hearing and second reading tonight. You're correct.
Okay, so there will be no further discussion on that ordinance tonight.
No, that's not what I said. There'll be no second reading and no hearing. It's on the agenda later. If
You'll discuss it, right, but there'll be no open public comment.
no, there's no public comment, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
name is Stephanie Morgan. I live at 49 Greenwood Drive in Millburn.
You have to speak louder.
I just live on.
Yep. You can take it out.
How much?
You take the mic out of the holder.
I'm gonna take this off.
No, take the mic out of the holder. Yeah.
Clearly, I've never been able to do that. On October 2nd, I sent to the committee members and the township manager a letter sharing my concerns about flying any flag other than the American flag on the township flagpoles. And I received, thank you, written responses from some of you, which I appreciate, and also a call from the mayor. And I see that under new business on the agenda includes a Human Relations Advisory Committee, which is like I think Ms. Krupas has talked about when the motion was rescinded with respect to the new ordinance for the flag that we mentioned, that there's a diversity group to deal with diversity issues in the municipality. I was fumbling around the township website because I'm still getting oriented to it, and I looked at the list of ad hoc committees, and then I just fumbled my way, I guess, into something called a Cultural Engagement, Diversity and Arts Committee. Based on its mission and structures, I read it actually looks kind of in the direction of the Human Relations Advisory Committee. But it looks like the current members' terms are over at the end of this year, so I don't know if it was a temporary ad hoc or what it was, but in any case, it looks like that something like this was contemplated at some point, earlier, well before I was familiar with the website anyway. But I wanted to share a few thoughts, whether the existing committee is reused or, people go into it or whether, something else is formed. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts. The first one is that while the selection of the committee has to be inclusive, it shouldn't get so large that attendance at meetings is unpredictable and decisions can't be made. We've had some experience in the nonprofit sector where that's the case, and what happens is nothing happens. The other thing is, I think that the final selection shouldn't be made until the new township committee members are sworn in so that they can have input. And I guess sort of the last thing is, I think that the committee, whether it's the existing committee or or a new one or whatever it is, should be given materials, including letters, township committee meeting minutes, and any other statements in response that you received with respect to the raising of the Black Lives Matter flag at Town Hall and the proposed draft of the ordinance with respect to flying any flag other than the American flag on township flagpoles. In concert with that, I would like to restate my concern, which each of you saw in the email and in the letter that I have sent to everyone of you, so it's going to be kind of a surprise. But I think the last comment having to do with flag flying as I'll call it a diversity and inclusion issue. I just want to say once more for the record that I just don't think that a new flag ordinance of any sort is going to accomplish anything. It would be impossible to agree on a hard and fast rule. It would have to be guidelines. An interpretation of these guidelines would never provide criteria on which every township committee and community member would agree inevitably. So what then? Would we go with the majority or refuse to fly the flag? If those who argue against it are compelling, loud, or organized? Since the adoption of the American flag, our country has not been able to agree as to what it symbolizes. The Confederacy rejected it, Vietnam protesters burned it, and today a broad constituency refuses to pledge to it. So please let's make sure that this Human Relations Committee, or whatever its name, focuses on the actions necessary for us to actually accomplish inclusiveness and equality rather than mere symbolism. American history and our recent experience in our community to guide a response to future proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth.
I failed.
Hi, everybody.
Can you really, there's no meeting?
Okay, just to piggyback off what she just said, please state your name. Jillian Bronstein, Barnesdale Road. I can't get that name. I just want to piggyback on what she said, because I'm very, very concerned, as you know, I've been to town council meetings. And I think that to create this human advisory committee, is that even the right term at this point? I don't even know where we're at with the terminology. But I think it's repackaging what you were trying to do before, underhandedly behind the scenes. So, yeah, you can make comments and you can make debates, but the truth is, I'm just speaking from the head, because it's clearly, you're trying to repackage something that so many townspeople rejected. So it's very concerning to so many of us in town. And there absolutely should not be any place for any of this stuff, especially on government property, because it's just divisive. And I warned you that weeks ago. I told the three of you that. And all you've done now is divided this community. You have pitted friends upon friends, neighbors upon neighbors. It's enough. That's it. Just get rid of it. It shouldn't be. There's one flag, like she said, it's the flag of the United States, and that's what unites everybody. If you have your own political opinions, then kindly keep them to yourself. Drape yourself in them head to toe. Decorate your house, the lawn, all of it. But that's it. Let everybody believe what they want to believe in, and leave the town property and government buildings alone to represent the United States of America. Hence the word united. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Bell. I live at 11 Alexander Lane for the last 28 years. I agree with the gentleman before about, I think he said that we are living in strange times and that we need creative solutions. For the last few meetings I've been here coming to you and I'm asking, why isn't the agenda packet items posted 48 hours prior to the meeting? If you look at today's agenda, it's outrageous as to 3 items. The first one says bill list. Why aren't we know like how $880,000 is being spent? Why don't we have the list of last 2 items? This went to Oprah. I discovered that we paid Mr. Falcone's law firm $50,000 at the last meeting. But the only way I found it, I had to file an Oprah request and wait time. I'm still waiting for a lot of Oprah responses. If you look at 2189, then the caption should at least tell you the amount of the contract that we're awarded. The reason I'm concerned, again, pursuant to Oprah, I found out at the last meeting, you approved a proposal that was applied to you on September 15th, at the day of the meeting, for Perkins East. When I started reading the proposal, you start seeing that they agreed to reduce their original offer by 1/3. In this resolution you're going to adopt tonight, you at least say what the 6 bids were. In the materials that we received from Perkins Eastman, I don't believe we ever saw who the 6 proposals were and the amounts. And when you start reading through the proposal, you start seeing a process that 2 members were the ones that decided who to retain. There's real issues, there's 45 days, and we have to contemplate, based on a lot of other things, whether that contract should be rescinded, and the people should have been given the proper notice so they can give comments as to that contract. And this is the real kicker tonight. If you look at 2197, we're transferring monies. You know what you're transferring the monies for? It's for the city. How come you don't say it's for the city? Because the city has been subject to litigation. And one of the things is, I supplied you a letter. I ask you specifically to ask your city attorney to review 4 new cases I gave you that were not cited disqualifying conflict of interest. Remember how they said these are strange times? This morning, New Jersey Globe, Kevin O'Toole, who was a former councilman, wrote a column. You know what his column was titled? He goes, how do you know when they are wearing a wire? That's how the day began. Then you go to the Star Ledger. There's an op-ed piece by a mayor of North Bergen. He's talking about Well, there's questions of whether the wrongful criminal statute, wrongful municipal behavior, public corruption, whether we should have minimum sentencing requirements. Then it gets better. The appellate division issues an opinion today for purposes of criminal impersonation, what is the word benefit means. Because yesterday, this township filed an answer. And half the people in this audience are in shock, saying that Ms. Prupus did not receive a benefit by approving the SID. Based on that appellate division decision, I think you better direct your city attorney to reconsider the answer that you guys filed yesterday. In addition, today, there are 2 notices that were published about notices of Mount Laurel, fair housing, fair share. That's what's driving everything that's going on here. One involves Roseland, the other one involves Pantry. When you look at the full page ads, that's why I told Jimmy, start reading the public notices, you learn a lot. This is where we're headed, folks. I have to lay out our plan. This was I sent to you in the mail, by email, local finance notices. In the last 10 days, 2 local finance notices were issued by the state. One directing how the virtual hearing meetings are supposed to happen, as a proper notice, and when we get access to public documents. We're entitled to these documents 48 hours prior. In addition, at some point tonight, our VA is going to tell us when we're going to have a public hearing on our calendar year best practice inventory questionnaire. That's required. One question you have, a new question this year is, does this municipality have an inclusionary zoning ordinance? So that's what's driving this, everyone. We have a constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing. You've been playing the game for all the years. This is monopoly. At some point, the property that we now know, we've been talking about American Water, which is on the other side of JFK. This is what's going to happen, folks. We're going to move the dump to that property. We're going to flip it to the developer who's eventually built the affordable housing. That's going to be multi-story, because that's where the goal is. Anything within a half mile of a train station, that's where the state wants high-density housing with a 10 to 15% share to affordable housing. Let's just make our numbers and let's move on.
Good evening, all. Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Dominic Urso. I'm living at 514 Millburn Avenue. I'm speaking on behalf of both my parents, Vincent and Terry Urso, as they are both working this evening and unfortunately cannot make it. My parents stood in opposition of the SID. They are right to have argued with no documented feasibility study, with no buy-in from the majority, and conflict of interest that Tara Prupus had stated in the last TC meeting that she ran to benefit her own business. If my parents and others opposing this SID choose to go to trial and know they have a good chance of winning, it could bankrupt their business of over 25 years in this town. It would be a lie for specific township committee members to claim they have helped small business owners in this town. If my parents choose to give up this lawsuit, they may have to close their business of over 25 years, and then you'll have another empty store in Millburn Township. We cannot survive at the current 25% capacity. For the record, in good faith, my parents rented Millburn Feed, a net lease. The tenant did not want to sign a lease, not knowing what the SID burden was going to be. Nobody wants to sign a lease with the encumbrance of an infinite tax lurking over their heads. Without any assistance from the SID, I'd like to point out, my parents did successfully rent the store on their own, no help with this. The lack of care and time given to longtime residents in this town by Tara Purpose and Mayor Lieberberg is not what people in this town voted you in for. It is disappointing to the community how you're ruining this town with your votes, with your poor choices that affect longtime taxpayers like my parents, that fund all the things you do not disclose to the public. I would like to ask Committee Member Wasserman, Purpose, and Mayor Lieberberg, where have you been in the last few months as far as merchants like my parents to see what they really need to help them?
speak via Zoom if she has a chance from work, unfortunately. That's why I'm here. I would personally like to thank both the previous mayor, committee member Sharon Bernstein, and committee member Diane Eglo for helping people like my parents in this town for what's right, honest, and what really helps the merchants and property owners. Thank you. I would like to know what you have done in these last few months. That was my question, to really go and help people like my parents. Because you haven't been, so I think the people deserve your answer as to why you didn't make your rounds. Can I have an answer? I mean, you're the mayor. Right?
This is your public comment, I know.
Sure, and I'm done, and I'm giving you my time to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Good job.
I yield my time to you. No answer. People deserve more.
Excuse me, sir, you've already spoken.
I'm speaking on a separate issue and.
We have other people that will need to speak to via Zoom.
But how many
I
minutes?
think basically what the mayor's saying is that.
There's other individuals that you need to
How many
hear
ones
from
do you have?
first.
Okay, but this is a separate topic.
I appreciate that.
Fine.
Go to Zoom.
Yes, please.
All right.
Oksana, you are on, but you were.
Do you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Oksana Zasoyeva, 44 Raleigh Place. I wanted to ask about the ordinance number 2562-20. We received a letter about the final vote on this ordinance. So first of all, I wanted to make a suggestion that when you are in one room and you are talking in the microphone, we don't hear anything. We just hear the reflection of the sound. We only hear people who are on their personal computers on the Zoom, but not what happens in the room, unfortunately. So maybe there should be some adjustment to that, because unfortunately, Zoom meeting for people outside is very difficult to comprehend what is happening. So just aside from this, I wanted to ask, when you are changing conditional uses to permitted principal uses, and you are removing any restraint of 125 feet from the nearest single-family dwelling, for us on Raleigh Place, it means that you are placing the to-be restaurant in our backyard. That means that, I'm speaking for 13 houses that are living on the street of Raleigh, and also the one that is on Whitcop and Whittingham. And we are all very concerned that because the permitted principal use will allow businesses to change, for example, any business that is adjacent to Raleigh Place or Whittingham, if they decide to sell their business to, for example, a restaurant, they will be able to do that without any variance. And you are removing from them 125 feet from the houses, meaning that we will have food trucks on our street that used to be a dead-end street. We will have the after smell of their kitchens in our backyard. We will have possibly rodents attracted by the food. And I wanted to understand why are you so upset with us that you decided to do that? Like, what is the reason behind that decision, besides the making it easier for the businesses to change? And just to stress it out for you, that we are basically 2 blocks of the residential area of the zone B4, and maybe we can find a middle ground where you can exclude us from this, because the main B4 line goes along the commercial area, and the residents are not affected by that mostly. So maybe if you see that when it's touching the residents so closely, you will exclude them from that decision, or you would leave at least 125 feet. So the restaurants or any of the retail food or fast food restaurants that you're putting in the ordinance are not in our backyards, because that definitely will impact our the cost of our houses, and it will definitely impact the lifestyle of ours, because we did not choose to be living in the place where the food trucks will be coming non-stop, and people parking for the restaurants and so on. So if you could just explain to us how we can, you know, meet here to allow, because I understand your decision is based on the fact that if a new business is coming, it's going to be easier for them. At least that's what the town clerk explained to me. And you know, it won't be so much time consuming and money-wise the same to change the use. And I understand that, and I respect that. I just want to understand whether you can also look at our interests and protect them, because we definitely did not choose to be living next to the restaurant. And we just want to understand if we can still keep that and not have the restaurant inside our street. Thank you.
Okay, next. Carissa?
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Season, and I have just the thing to your spirits. Ask me to tell you a ghost
Alexa,
story.
off.
Can you hear me? Okay. So just a couple things. I just browsed through the agenda, and I just wanted to ask, under the new business, is the Human Relations Advisory Committee, is that the same thing that was proposed regarding a new advisory committee on diversity and anti-racism for the town? So could anybody answer that? Is that the same thing?
That is the name that other communities use to address some of the issues that came up prior. So it is not that the name is not carved in stone, but that seems to be the name that other nearby communities use as a broad stroke.
Okay, so it is the same thing. Will that run in addition to the current CETA?
I'm going to speak to the under new business under the agenda item. I'm going to be speaking about this Human Relations Committee and about CETA. So if you just stay tuned,
Sure.
I will be discussing both of those items.
Okay. So, when you talk about it, I was just curious to know, how many people would be on this committee, who would be chairing the committee, and I hope you'll cover, because that's a pretty wide open, broad description. Human relations, what the intent or the scope is. The other thing I wanted to ask about is just in the past few meetings, a couple of the TC members have mentioned Robert's rules. Is that what sort of governs these meetings, Robert's rules?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe I can add to that. In a general fashion, Robert's rules is a very lengthy, convoluted set of rules which are generally designed to regulate parliamentary procedures. Most of the procedures that this township committee follows are governed by the statutes which have been adopted by the state of New Jersey for the way that municipalities shall work and the voting requirements and the kinds of things that they can do. But occasionally there's a need to resort to Roberts to get some, what I would call guidance on how something ought to be handled.
Okay, so for instance, I actually have a nice cheat sheet on Robert's rules. So things about point of order, how to object to something, how to move something, how to table something, how to suspend something, how to appeal something, that kind of thing. Does it fall under Robert's rules, sir?
Yeah, those are topics under Roberts, and those are for the, those are to be affected by the Township Committee. Yes, there are about 900 pages of those rules. Yes.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I have 5. So it's like a cheat. It is a cheat sheet for Robert's rules. The reason I'm asking this is because there seems to have been a lot of dialogue on what is quote unquote normal and customary in ways that things have been handled. And it seems to me that if, you know, these procedures here are what we're paying attention to and what guide the TC, kind of irrelevant what someone on the TC thinks is normal and customary, because that's just the way they would do something. So you all have these, right? And so anybody can use these points of order and these mechanisms to guide what happens at the table, right? Anybody on the TC can do that, right?
Bertha, could you continue, please? We're beyond.
Be consistent. I rushed myself.
Excuse me, please.
That's my point. Is there, what's the consistency here? Is it how one person would do things, or is it how a document lays out how things are supposed to be done? Because if it's just a matter of opinion that things have been handled incorrectly, then so what? But if it's a matter of whether or not procedure was followed, then that's a different thing. So I hope that everybody, you know, follows the same procedure. That would be useful. And then the last thing I wanted to say about the SID is, I mean, it looks to me like this assessment, which will take place in 2022. So for instance, for a merchant that has a property, or a landlord that has a property that's worth $1 million, we're talking about $627 a year. We're not talking about thousands, right? So, I mean, I would hope that that wouldn't be so onerous that it's going to put people out of business. But good news, I'm going to launch a GoFundMe site to help raise money to help these merchants pay for that.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that. I'll look out for that.
Thank you, Carissa. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. DeBliss?
Good evening. Ron DeBliss, 10 Raleigh Place. My neighbor, Oksana, earlier talked about the ordinance 2562-20 was changing permitted, or basically conditional use to permitted use. I agree. We on Raleigh Place, we have 10 Raleigh Place, which is where I live. I don't understand why in the world we would change that. I've been here since 1992. That rule has been in place since. We've had many businesses come up for discussion. Some have been successful, some have not. And I can't imagine why in the world we would want to change that so that a restaurant or something similar to go through a process and allow the residents nearby to have a say in what goes on. So thank you for listening, but again, I am completely, my family is completely against changing that ordinance from conditional to permitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Anik Makaja from Meadowbrook Road. I just wanted to speak up about the restaurant ordinance. I wanted to thank the committee for hearing us in the past and for listening to residents' voices. We understand your desire to remove the red tape costs in the CBD district. So basically, on behalf of a number of my neighbors, I wanted to say thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Alex?
Yes, hi. My name is Alex Oshkovsky. I also would like to say something about this restaurant ordinance because I live on the corner of Whittingham Terrace and Wicker Place. And I can tell you that I'm really, really surprised that this ordinance is being pushed without consulting anybody on this block. And I'm really, really concerned because I worked hard all my life. I did all I could in order to provide for my family and kids. Eventually, we were able to purchase the house on this block, and suddenly, out of the blue, out of nowhere, this regulation is jeopardizing our well-being. I don't understand how this actually comes to place without consulting us. For any little change in ordinance, we're getting letters and everything else. Here, it's just go ahead and vote for it. So we have 4 people who are not even living in this neighborhood, who are not even close to us, are deciding the livelihood for us. This is why I'm very, very concerned about this. And I think that you shouldn't rush with this decision. I understand the need for business. I'm always pro-business. I understand the needs for the restaurants, but not on my backyard. If you like the restaurants and food carts, you're welcome to put it in your backyard. But before you decide it for us, please consult and talk to us. Thank you very much.
No, not yet. Debbie and Bill? Sorry, we have 2 more. Debbie Thompson? You have to unmute yourself. Or Bill? You're on and can speak. Okay, we're gonna move on. BPM.
Hi there.
I'm just muting it right now. Did you? Yeah. Whoever BPM is, you cannot be on 2 things at the same time. You're getting an echo.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. There you go.
Okay, hi, how are you? This is Perry Urso calling. I'm glad I was able to get in. I'd like to take a moment. Good evening, Township Committee members and the public. I'd like to take a moment to thank committee women, Cheryl Burstein, Diane Eglow, for their courage and position on seeing all sides of the SID ordinance. You both stand for true townswomen and setting examples of what a mayor should be. And I thank you both from the bottom of our heart. Please recognize that we recently have been assigned a case number from the state of New Jersey, the DCA, for the ethics complaint that has been filed. I'd like to address my comment tonight to Ms. Purpose. I'd like to comment on your statement delivered at the September 15th, 20 TC meeting. You have selectively weighed in on several agenda items which have puzzled me. You stated, after serious reflection and advice from counsel, I ask you the following. Was that advice from counsel you privately retained, or was it the opinion of the township attorney? Your answer? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Perry, for sure.
Okay,
I just-
wonderful.
I'm choosing not to respond.
Can you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Could I be heard on this?
No, I asked the question to Ms. Purpose.
I know you did. I have recommended and longstanding, many decades worth of policy on the part of the Township Committee. You have a matter pending before the local finance board and litigation, and we do not discuss in the public meetings matters related to those claims.
Well, I'm sorry, but she was very passionate about her statement in the past meeting, and she was very clear to say that, that she sought counsel. So I'm just simply asking, was it counsel that she retained, or was it an opinion of yours, Kit? So since you want to weigh in on it, did you advise her?
I'm actually going to weigh in on it, and Perry, I already explained that, like, I'm not addressing your question.
Okay, so for the public, you're not going to answer that question. Okay.
I'm not addressing your question tonight.
Okay, so
on your public comments, please do so.
Okay. In that same statement, you selfishly admitted that one of the reasons your words as Tara Prupis is to give a voice to people who don't have voices up here. You stated that you got involved with politics. Decisions were made that directly impacted me. These are your words, I'm quoting you. My business and my livelihood. That's what fueled me to run and campaign and give my time and efforts to this community, which I am so privileged to extend that privilege to others. Where was your voice for us during the SID discussions?
Ms. Urso, thank you for your comments.
We don't want that.
I have a question. Where was her voice?
Ms. Urso, we're not responding. You are allowed to make public comment. The TC members are choosing not to respond. Thank you for your comment.
Okay, so
Thank you.
were you not hearing our voices? Well, your decision to vote yes on the SID, clearly you have not. And the lack of accountability and transparency will be greatly impacted on me with many other property owners for years to come. And how will that affect you? Another question that I know that she will not answer. Lastly, I ask you to reflect back on your answers, which you were asked during your campaign in 2018. To questions, and ask yourself, why have you not stood up? Are you no longer on the ground as where you were in your comment in question number 8 of your campaign? And why not live up to your words? So I'm going to enclose. How would you answer those questions today?
Perry, can you hear me?
How would you answer the questions from May?
Perry, I'm trying to, can you hear me?
Today. This is the most that I've heard from you. I haven't heard from you in months. How would you answer the May 31st, 2018 questions today that were posted on Tap Into? I'm asking you, how would you answer those 12 questions today?
Mary, thank you for your comments. We're going to move on to the next.
Fine, but I'm going to expect answers to question number 3. I'm going to ask questions number 5, answers to question number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, number 12. When can we expect that those answers will be received?
Thank you, Perry.
All right. Sorry. we're moving on to the next. Alex spoke.
That's why these things don't work.
Good evening, Nicholas Gold, Kelly Overwood Terrace. I think we've heard from several residents.
Yeah, they shut me off.
Oh, yeah, hey, answer the question.
Sorry, Barry, this is Nick Gold, Kelly now. Okay, so regarding the B4 ordinance, I think we've heard from several residents this evening. I think you all are trying to do the right thing to make the downtown more friendly for businesses, which is in line with what we have been talking about on other topics. Perhaps we can find a way, working with the zoning board, to exclude that corner of the B4 district by the post office, which is where this concern is coming from. Or perhaps we can nuance the change that you're considering in this ordinance to not completely remove the setback, so that we still protect those particular residences while still making it easier downtown. So I think I understand what you're trying to do. I think you're in the right direction. I think we need to assure those residents still in that corner that we're going to keep them in mind and not impose on them. So thank you. That's my comment this evening. And thank you for your service. I know, boy, this stuff is uglier than I thought. Thank you.
This is Bill Horvat again, Whitney Road, and I'm talking with respect to the same ordinance 2562-20. And I'd like to bring up to you, this is not a, the current text was not always there. I've lived in this town for approximately 50 years, and during that time period, it was as a result of concerns by residents that those conditions were put in the zoning ordinance. And I'd like to say that I think they were put in there for a good reason, that a restaurant is a high density use. It has, as you said, trucks, but it also had many more customers than the average other business. It had much, let's say, much more extensive hours than typically other businesses, like your bank was closing at 5, at a restaurant. To have a barrier, not a barrier, but a boundary that basically insulates the nearby residents from the full effect of a commercial purpose. So I would recommend that you table this ordinance. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Tracy Hatch. I think Okay, my name is Tracy Hatch. I live at 432 Millburn Avenue. I'm here representing the Lackawanna merchants. I'm also affiliated with Pantry. And I'm here primarily to discuss the wonderful support that you've shown Main Street and how you've attracted a lot of people to Main Street that perhaps wouldn't have come to Millburn. It's become quite a venue. But in doing that, it's to the detriment of Lackawanna and other parts of the town. And you haven't actually put any good signage saying go here, go there. You have no lights in any other parts of the town. You have nothing that indicates there's more to Millburn than Main Street. So what I'm here to ask is, what are you considering? We have maybe 2 or 3 weeks left of outside dining. We've been canvassing for outside parking, so we can use the parklets. So we could actually put up a stage, and we could actually put up lights and say to people, okay, look, instead of waiting in line to get your table in Main Street, you could take a little walk up 2 blocks and you could walk to another part of town.
So is the town going to do anything to help the people of Lackawanna? The merchants, the restaurants, and now with the outside dining coming to a close, we really, I know that Cafe Monterey can only seat 12 people. Those businesses which have actually been in town for 15, 20 years will go out. And you've done nothing but just support Main Street. And they're new businesses. They've got a lot of money. I don't know what out they had with the township. I don't know how they got all the support from the town. But what about Lackawanna? What about the other parts of town? Do you have anything to say? And do you have any plans to do anything? Put some nice lights. I know you have Christmas lights. Anything to show the people that are visiting the wonderful job you've done on the Main Street. There's more to Millburn.
Tracy, well, you know, I've come over, and the mayor has also come over. We've come over. We've talked to you about this, and I know that winter is coming on, and we've discussed, you know, getting a legal heating, you know, for you. But I do agree that there is a need for, you know, for lights and you know, and marketing and other things. I definitely agree with you, and I'm hoping, you know, that we can make some strides with it. You know, I think we discussed that, but I also think, you know, that the newly established bid could help you with that, and I think that that's the whole point of what a bid does for their businesses. You know, with social media, and I recommended that you come to the next meeting.
Well, I understand that, and I do appreciate that, but I'm looking for help for now. And the help has been just so one-sided. It's just been to Main Street and nobody else. And I don't know why we are not allowed to have the outside park lit. I spoke to the fire, and they said that in fact it might be a bit of an issue actually having heaters. So I think that's also going to restrict the amount of outside dining.
I think, you know, I've talked to some of your neighbors about enabling, you know, about looking into a parklet, and I just want, you know, I don't think that, I think people should know that some of your neighbors don't want a parklet there, you know, so I'm just saying, you know, these are things that I would love to help you with, but I just want you to know that if your neighbors are objecting to it, it's, you know, we have to try to also respect everybody's, you know, point of view.
I do understand that, and for that we did get a petition up together, and I think we got actually I'm not quite sure.
I have it.
Yeah, but we have everybody except for one merchant who wants his clients or his customers to come in and pick up a cup of coffee. What we are saying is they let them sit out outside the restaurant, outside the pizzeria, outside Cafe Monet, and sit there and look around and say, hey, what else is going on? Rather than just flying into town, picking up their egg, and then going off. I think that particular merchant is a bit short-sighted, because also he now could do outside dining. And he has a restriction of only having 12 people. But so, I don't see why one merchant can control what 12 merchants want.
Yeah. I hear you. I totally hear you. And something that we're working on. And you know we're working on it. You know,
I know, but this is for this season, right? People are going to go out. When I was getting this petition signed, people were crying. This is how distressed and how much business they've lost. You know, I think that people are losing like 80% of their business. And they're only there because of the generosity of their landlords. And the landlords have signed the petition as well. So, I'm looking to ask, please, can you Perhaps reconsider, perhaps put up some lights, I don't know what that takes. At least that means people will look and say, hey, look, there's something else in town. Right? But you could even put lights up with ghosts. I see that the other towns have done a great thing in terms of like lighting up their streets and doing a lot of things for the town. And I think Millburn's been a bit sad.
I don't disagree. Thank you, Tracy.
That's very difficult to hear. Having been a 23-year resident, I'm really sorry to hear that that's how these people are being treated. I'm Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. Okay, that's right. Sorry. Anyway, Jeff, is that your name, right? Jeff raised some really serious issues tonight. I'm pretty shocked by a lot of the things that he said. I'd ask the mayor to address some of them before this meeting is adjourned. We deserve transparency about township committee business and how it's conducted. And I want to know, why are we not having these documents 48 hours in advance, which is absolutely the bare minimum of what this township committee should be doing. So I'd just like to hear some responses to what you said. I'm really alarmed by most of it. As to the Human Relations Advisory Committee, the decision to form the committee appears to have come as a reaction to the handling by Ms. Prupus of her motion to raise the Black Lives Matter flag at Town Hall next to the American flag. I look forward to hearing the research you've done about forming this committee, what its purpose is, what its goals are, and very importantly, how its membership will be determined. If this committee is to form, it will be essential to have representation of the whole community, not just those who agree with what Ms. Prupus has proposed in the past, like it was done with the SID or whatever you're calling it now, appointees. With all members, will all the members be residents of Millburn? If not, why not? If you're including teachers who may not reside in Millburn, will you include police and firefighters? I certainly hope so. I would especially like to note that I spent 10 years as an advocate for children, teens, young and older adults with special needs and those receiving special education services, begging this township, literally begging, and being embarrassed by the sneakers program or whatever it was. And that was all we had to offer our kids at the time. And I think we still only have that. I begged people to do something. I gave specific things that again came from other township examples and so forth. Nothing, I repeat, nothing was done, adopted, or championed for these people who represent 20% of the community. Please include them in this committee and adopt something meaningful for inclusion of these children and adults who are far too often ostracized and left out systemically in Millburn. Thank you.
No, it's not for me. What happened? I don't know. My mom's spoke, my dad's
Sorry. No, they're going back there.
Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Is there one? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
They're going in the back room.
First of all, Mayor, may I just make a suggestion? I think the comments from the audience are not helpful right now in terms of being able to conduct a business meeting. Yes. Okay. But since they did say something, the question was whether you address anybody further on the Zoom call. We did go through that process.
If there is somebody else waiting.
There looks like there are a couple. There looks like there are a couple people who are repeating. There's also some other ones who haven't spoken.
Okay, so let's get the people that haven't spoken, please, and please be mindful. Please excuse me for and please be mindful of the 3 minutes.
Jessica?
Yes, hi. My name is Jessica Mester. I live at 30 Raleigh Place. And I want to say, first, I'd like to say thank you very much for letting us, be able to speak, via Zoom. I'm just basically backing up my neighbors. We moved here in 2005. When we were with our sales agent, he made a comment saying, "Oh, you're going to be your starter home. Then you'll move to Short Hills." And I honestly felt back then that he was degrading the fact that we were moving into a smaller home with a single car driveway and a detached garage. It wasn't good enough. It was you move to Short Hills and you get your big 3-car garage and big house, and then you're worth something. I almost feel the same way with the fact that we were not considered, given the opportunity to know about this ordinance ahead of time, that we are not worth as much as somebody who lives in another part of Millburn Township. I'm not saying that everybody thinks that, but that's the way that I feel. We take pride on our street of Raleigh, Whittingham, and Whitcop. We are, or at least I am, very pro-business. I mean, one thing that I love, the fact that we can walk into town, and that is a reason we did buy our house, but there were no restaurants on that street when we moved in. And if there were restaurants, then perhaps we would not have bought our house at that time. Oksana mentioned about the value of our homes going down, and I am also a little concerned about that. Right now everyone's running to move out of, New York City, and they're buying on our street because we're so close to town, but they know nothing about restaurants, opening up because they don't live here, they don't have the ordinance. They're just in contract. So if you could please consider, our requests not to have restaurants. I don't want the smell. It's bad enough that Orange Theory, the music pounds so loudly right into my, bedroom when I'm in my house. And I've spoken to them, and I just, I didn't pay to take that class, and I don't think I should hear it. I don't want to have smell of a restaurant. I don't want to perhaps have rodents. I'm praying that would not happen. And parking will be terrible because you can only park on one side of our street because it's not wide enough to park on 2 sides. We have many dogs. We have many little children that live on our street. People think of our street as a main highway sometimes, and it's just ridiculous. And this is going to definitely make it worse. So please have a heart and please reconsider, putting any type of food establishment into, the mall right by our houses. Thank you again for listening, and stay safe. Thank you.
Got the number ending in 7111.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Vince Urso, 514 Millburn.
Hold on one second. Vin, you cannot have 2 things on at the same time. You're getting an echo. I'm going to unmute you. I got to ask to unmute. Go ahead and unmute. There you go.
Yes, hi, my name is Vince Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue, Short Hills. I have a question for Ms. Rupris. I would like to know, what properties does she own in our municipality? One question.
We're not responding.
Anything?
Mr. Urso, we are not.
Okay.
Mr. Urso, we're not responding to questions. Thank you.
Okay.
When can I expect an answer?
When can I expect an answer?
Done.
Hello.
Oksana would like to speak again.
When can I expect an answer?
Hold on.
She does
Do you,
So let's move on.
if you want to respond to that?
We will not be responding to your question, Mr. Urso. Thank you for your comment.
Oksana? That's up to the chair.
I think
Do you
one
hear-
problem is people on Zoom cannot know our time. So how can we maybe let the people on Zoom know in a 30-second time, Jimmy or Jackie, maybe because that would move this along?
I will let you know, Ms.
Hello?
Oksana, did you want to add something to your previous comment?
Yes, so my understanding was that it will be a dialogue. I didn't know that it will be just a monologue. So I wanted to ask quickly because my neighbors keep sending me the messages. So some of them heard that you will be not voting today on the ordinance 256220 that we were commenting previously on. Could you just let us know if it's postponed?
Not postponed. We will be voting on the ordinance this evening.
You will, I'm sorry, I don't hear. You will be voting today?
This evening.
This evening. Could you please repeat it because I really don't hear anything from the room.
Roxana, they're going to vote on it tonight.
Okay, so we just wanted to ask to please again reconsider because you will impact the lives of both streets, and that will be for us the next step is to sell the houses as soon as possible so no one can hear about this ordinance before they buy our houses, because in a year or two our houses will lose like at least $100,000. So I don't know why you're punishing us for that, and what is the decision, and like, you know, behind what is the basis behind this decision and why we didn't hear about this before, and we were only notified about the final vote. But the story is there is no need to remove 125 feet. You know how we already suffer that Moonshine is pounding us with this music, and then when we speak with the owner, he comes to us and he tells us the town knows and I can do whatever I want. So that is of course a different discussion and a different topic, but then bringing Moonshine into our backyard, just please have a pity on us. And between this and the the Orange Theory having on Saturday the exercises in the morning in the parking lot, we really have no peace already. So when you will put the restaurant, you know, I don't know, like 12 feet, what is it's going to be restriction, and at the trucks bringing the food and loading and unloading and making our streets into Manhattan, you know,
Anna,
it's gonna be really, really miserable. If you are really there to protect the residents and not the businesses only, then you will have a heart to do the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana.
We can also let them know, because that's for the people that are in the room. We can go up, we can turn it, and maybe the people can see it. However, you know, it'll be difficult for them to see on these.
I felt left out. I thought that you could come up. So I'm Wendy Brasher, and I live at 26 Park Road. And because I didn't really understand the answer before, we had asked to make sure that the vote tonight on ordinance 2563-20 is not getting a vote tonight. Okay, but you said you're going to be discussing it. Is it going to be more than just discussing about tabling it until the next meeting?
Why don't you just, you'll have to wait.
Okay, okay, happy to. Thank you.
Okay, Raphael?
Yes, hi. This is Raffaele Iodice, 44 Rowley Place. Well, I've been listening to my other neighbors talking, so I don't want to repeat the same. I definitely agree with everything they've been saying. I have a question for you. I hope I can get an answer because, as somebody else said, I mean, there shouldn't be a monologue, right? My question is, why? We have a town where business is not doing really very well right now. A lot of business, as you know very well, is closing down. Why do we need to add some strange change to current set of rules to do what? To attract more business? We have like 25 places that are empty and cannot rent, cannot get a new business running for years now. And why are we doing this? What is there a need? I mean, if this was Westfield with hundreds of restaurants and they need to create the space for more to come, I maybe will, at least I would understand the reason. But in our case, we have so many places empty that went bankrupt, that unfortunately went out of business. And we need to add this weird ordinance that is going to put a restaurant in the backyard of the people who were hoping to live in a nice place. I don't get it. Can somebody please answer? Can somebody please tell me if there is already a plan, if there is already a restaurant who has been talking to you guys and not to us, and is planning to come onto Raleigh Place on the back of Orange Theory or whatever, or on Whitcop or Whittingham Terrace. Can you tell us, because if we need to sell, we would like to know before the restaurant starts business. Can somebody please answer, Mayor or someone else?
You know, Mayor, can I speak on this? You know, the idea of changing the current statute was to lower the barriers for our existing restaurants to expand into current, vacant restaurant space. We have a lot of successful, businesses, and we have a lot of empty space. And the original idea was to, take one of our current businesses. If they wanted to move into a vacant space, like, I don't know, like casitas or one of the empty spaces, right now they would have to, they would have to go, they would have to go before a board. They would have to spend money for an architect. They would have to make their case. It would take several months, and it would take 15 or I don't want to overstate the case, but it would take $15,000 or $20,000 in order for them to get a variance to move into that empty space. So it's a very high bar for to fill a space, even though it was already a restaurant. So we were trying to add some common sense, for our for the advantage of our current food establishments, and we were also trying to make it easier, for our commercial property owners to sign leases. So that was the idea. It wasn't, and again, this was only for the B4 zone. It was only for the downtown zone. It wasn't for, it's not targeted for the rest of the town. So I totally appreciate your question, but your question almost, is the reason why we're doing this. There are a lot of empty spaces that were even food establishments, and right now, if a restaurant wants to move in there, they have, they have to get a variance. So that's the underlying reason. And it was done, it wasn't done to, it wasn't done to hurt any of our neighbors. It was done to, for the benefit of the township. The other thing I'd like to talk about for a minute is the noise. I know that we've had a lot of complaints recently. I don't want to mention names, but there's been a lot of loud restaurants. Alex, Mr. McDonald, can you address this for a minute in terms of what we're doing about the noise? I just think people should know that we've received a lot of complaints, and I don't know if people understand that we're addressing it.
Well, we have received some complaints. We have addressed this with those individuals that have been complained against. And I believe a response was sent to one of the individuals that had made a complaint. Yes, again, we've been dealing with a unique situation in the township with regard to businesses operating in a different way than they have in the past. And so, you know, again, the balancing act that the township is sort of experiencing is the quality of life issues for our residents, as well as the operation of businesses in downtown and other business districts. So this has been addressed with code enforcement, the police department, and I've also met with those individuals that have been complaining against.
So we can assure our neighbors that if there's continuous noise, you know, keeping people up at night, that those establishments will be dealt with.
I think that we can assure the residents that we are very well aware of the situation, and should there be a violation of the township's code, that it will be handled properly and effectively.
Thank you. Just wanted to get that out.
Okay. Mayor, there is one individual that has not yet spoken.
Okay.
I wish to take that.
Yes, please.
Michael, or I'm sorry, Mayala.
Hi.
You'll have to speak up, Michaela. We can't hear you, please.
Hi, this is Ryan McCullum, resident of 18 Raleigh Place. My mother is Mihaela McCullum, resident of the same residence, and I wanted to speak a little bit about this today. I am a 6th grader going to middle school, and I'm doing online because I have asthma and it is very dangerous for me, so I can't go into the schools. I have lots of homework now that I'm in 6th grade, and I feel that if there was a restaurant to be built here, my sleeping schedule would be affected greatly, on top of waking up at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning because the gym is blasting music into my bedroom. And I just wanted to say that it is very important for restaurants to have distances from residences, because there's a difference between where people sleep, eat, and drink in their own houses, and where people go to talk loudly and play music in a restaurant. And I think that we should maintain the distance of 125 feet from restaurant to residences, because houses and restaurants need to social distance.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mayor, everyone that currently has their hand raised has already spoken. Whether you'd like to.
And we now have closed public comment period. And we will be proceeding with the consent agenda resolutions. The committee will now consider consent agenda items 20-187 through 20-196. Are there any comments from the committee with respect to items on the consent agenda? Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda items? May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-187 through 20-196? May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald, resolution 20-197. Could you please speak to the committee about this?
Yes, this resolution is before the committee, as a result of, a request being made by the Board of Trustees of the Special Improvement District. I will actually, let Mr. Watson speak to this.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Alex. So we're at a point right now with the bid where,
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that, right now, our volunteers have been working. We are currently interviewing a marketing coordinator, currently, interviewing for the position of marketing coordinator, and that's something that the committee's been working on. Also, we're formally asking the township committee to fund the bid with the amount of $19,988, which would take the bid through the end of the year. We have an initial budget which basically covers marketing coordinator, and we have a budget for marketing coordinator. That amount, if you break it down, that amount would be $7,500 through the end of the year. We will also, a part of our budget would be marketing, website development, online marketing, social media, marketing collateral, creation of
Excuse me, Mr. Mossman, when we presented with that budget, I'm hearing this for the very first time. Did you share that with any committee members?
Sure.
Well, committee members start, but I'm hearing this for the very first time. So I'm not on my sheet.
Okay. Part of the ordinance is where we can ask the township for seed money to get started with the bid.
I understand what this is for, Mr. Wasserman, but I am concerned that I'm hearing you're giving actual numbers that there should have been shared.
They're approximations.
These are approximations. So,
But we could have still received a copy of your proposed budget and what you're going to use the money for.
well, the money would be, well, that's what I'm going through right now.
Well, but why don't we have it before the meeting so we are aware of what you're doing? That's the question, I think.
Right. And this has nothing to do with that I voted against this. This has to do with, again, the process, the transparency that is lacking. And I have like a big note here, ask Jackie to explain detail, because there's actually, and I'm thinking, you want to hire the part-time director, accountant, attorney, and I want, it should have been presented to all of us before you're presenting it to the public, because I have nothing in writing, and I'm really dismayed.
Let me go through the rest of this. Market research, $1,500, full programming, $3,000, and the amount of this would not exceed $20,000.
I'm going to say that I'm going to ask that we a motion to table this until I can see something in writing. I think this is completely inappropriate. So I'm putting a motion on the table to table resolution 2197, requesting approval of items of revenue and appropriation for seed money that I have nothing in writing to vote on.
I second that. I just don't understand if you know, you have the three of you who you know you're going to vote on something, don't you at least have, you know, give us at least the opportunity to look at it, support it, not support it, whatever it may be. but at least consider it.
I don't vote on it. I know where the prosecutor's office is. That's
Well,
what we-
if there's a motion on the table that's accepted, I believe the mayor has to at least ask for a vote to my motion to table this.
So Christine, may I have a roll call to table this?
Ms. Burstein? I'm sorry, Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
No.
Ms. Stahl Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
No.
Mayor Lieberberg?
No.
This is what Ms. Riley was talking about.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Is there a police officer?
Yeah, he's up there.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-197?
He's up there.
I also, before, I just want to add one more thing. I watched the meeting and Mr. Parlavecchio, who's the attorney for the city, did ask for $10,000 of seed money. And Tracy Levine, I don't know what her title's gonna be, immediately counted with $20,000. And now for the first time, me, myself, Cheryl, I don't know if Tara has seen this, are hearing what you already spent $20,000.
No, Diane,
We
Diane,
haven't
it is
spent that.
budget. Diane, it is not a dollar has been spent.
The ordinance
This is
was
the
passed.
this is the anticipatory expenses to fund the SID through the calendar year of 2020.
Why was it not appropriate that you felt that you and Mr. Wasserman should have shared this with the other township committee members and the public, because it is taxpayers' money for this? I just don't understand this.
I would just, only from only from a standpoint of mechanism,
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment that the resolution before the township committee is a chapter 159 resolution to establish a budgetary line item and a mechanism to grant funds to the special improvement district, which is permitted under section 15 of the ordinance that was passed to create this special improvement district. I just want to clarify that from a mechanism standpoint and a procedure standpoint.
So in other words, this whole discussion about budget is irrelevant? Or I don't,
You have 28 hours.
Can you clarify?
no, never mind.
Mr. Falcon, can you weigh in on this, please, a little bit for clarification?
Well, what I understand is that there's a sum of money that's been calculated to carry forward for the balance of the year to assist the SID, which is authorized under section 15 of the ordinance that the township can advance monies by way of grants, loans, or otherwise with such criteria to ensure that the recipients comply with the intended purposes, meaning that the amounts that are set forth have to be accounted for and made sure that they get spent in accordance with the purpose. Now, as far as what Alex had to say, that is a matter which is needed to be done in order to add a line item to the budget. That's about all I can say about this.
May I ask our attorney a question? Since this is under litigation, we don't know how it's going to go. Can we even fund seed money? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, there's no reason at the moment that you can't undertake this. There's litigation pending, yes, but there is no determination has been made in any fashion as to the operation of the SID or the actions that you've taken thus far.
So if it gets rescinded in the courts, whatever, what happens to the money that they've already spent? Because they want a budget to spend money. They don't put a budget to sit in the bank account. I'm assuming Richard just gave a whole line item of things they'd like to spend on.
Right.
So is this prudent to be giving a bank account?
Well, shouldn't we presume that it's legal until it's not?
No.
It's not, the monies that will be spent will be reviewed by the Board of Trustees. It's not as if that this is an open checkbook for the organization to execute monies without approval.
Well, I don't know if I can agree with that, Mayor, because we know that the Board of Trustees was handpicked, so I'm not comfortable with it.
But again, the whole point, again, we get away from what the bid is for. The bid is for people like Tracy and other merchants that are just trying to make it. And the bid is to assist our small businesses. So, and the ordinance, listen, whether you like it or not, the ordinance was passed, and I would just ask that he give us a chance, to do some good for our business.
So I have a question.
You did it.
If you can continue with that behavior, you will be asked to leave.
You know what? I'm gonna leave anyway. Okay? And as I'm leaving, I'm gonna tell you that you're hiding things from other people. But that is not, you weren't hiding it. How come they didn't know about it? They didn't know about it. She's on the committee. She didn't know about it. This person's on the committee. She didn't know about it.
We will now proceed. Resolution 20-198 authorizes the temporary and extended closure of section of Main Street. Oh, okay. May I have a motion to approve?
Wait. I have another, can I ask another question?
Question.
Okay, so let me just understand. Does it matter the amount that they're asking for and connect? Is this resolution just to put the line item on the budget? Is that the sole purpose of this resolution? I just want to make sure I understand that. Was it for a particular amount of money for the line item?
It allows for, it is to establish a revenue item, but also to make those payments available to the city. It's a revenue item to allow for these funds to be granted to, as I stated, that is allowed under section 15 to the city.
So once this is passed and Richard has a budget, which I assume is going to equal close to that amount, then
no, not necessarily. It will not exceed that amount.
It will not exceed that amount.
It's a big difference, yes.
So then those things will start once your board approves your budget. Does the TC also have to approve that budget?
Cheryl has a question.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand then, because you're saying that this 19,988.16 is what is going to be for the remainder of calendar year 2020, right? That's what I understand. Am I correct? Okay. So shouldn't this resolution reflect that? Or maybe it does, and I just don't read it that way.
The revenue in the budget of the year 2020 in the sum of $19,988.16 will now be available from the Township of Millburn Reserve for SID Trust. Yes, that is in the resolution.
And the anticipation is that we're not going to be asking for any further monies for 2020?
Correct. Till the end of the, yes. Through 20, this will fund it through 2020.
And how much are we going to be paying the marketing director?
The marketing individual is budgeted at $25 an hour.
And
anticipated 25, right, anticipated 25 to 30 hours per week. 7,500 for 10 weeks.
I think that moving forward, that when you're asking for something like this, it would be appropriate to provide the information to the remainder of the committee people so that they have an opportunity to look at it, digest it before they need to vote on it. Because if you're just saying here, okay, we're making a line item, it's one thing. If now we're talking about where we're spending our money and things like that, I think it's more appropriate for us to have that information.
I don't, Cheryl, if I can just respond to that, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And I think that going forward, I guess we thought that this would just take us through the end of the year and
that it was a procedural just to fund the mid-SID. It was not, the intention was not to not be transparent or not share.
Not to be transparent.
Mr. Bell.
Okay,
Mr. Bell, we're going to have Julie as well. The intention was and then, which is why we had these preliminary line items for the budget, to be as transparent as possible and to give the committee a full understanding of what the budget would look like. It was not, I was not aware that we needed to provide a full comprehensive budget for the remainder of the year.
Well, what did that at the beginning? We got to present.
And I'll also, mention that, I think the people that we're interviewing, to go along with what the mayor said, we want to, make sure that you're in the process also.
Right, that's why we included you in the selection in the meeting, so that you would.
In the interview process for this new consultant
And I appreciate that, but I just think that this is also part of, sort of our purview as well.
I agree.
So are you willing to table this?
No.
No.
But your point is well taken.
But mine isn't.
No, your point's well taken also.
Diane,
Just speak with and give us a chance to know what your line items are, Richard. I think it's
Because
unfair.
our businesses are suffering, we could use that, we could use the help.
Diane, if in fact we want to get moving on some of the holiday programs.
Right.
Jackie, I know you wanted to move this, and this was important to you to have this done, but 2 weeks.
Diane, let me explain, okay? It's October 6th. If in fact we're going to get going on some activities for Halloween and Thanksgiving into the new year, it's important that we get moving right away. You know how long it takes to execute things, and 2 weeks, timing is of the essence.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, respectfully, Mayor, that things do take time, but things don't have to be pushed inappropriately fast. The paper bags and the plastic ordinance took 2 years. The chicken ordinance that some people made fun of took over a year. This was pushed through in 2 weeks without this normal meeting in between. And the meeting here that I'm voting to fund, to feed a checkbook that already has a budget against it, and do not share that with even Cheryl and I. And does the board know about these line items, Richard? Does your board know?
Our next meeting is on Thursday, October 15th.
Right, did your board, but I'm asking you, did your board help you come up with those line items? It's a yes or no?
Not the whole board.
Oh, not even the whole board?
No, we have a subcommittee.
Diane, it was discussion.
We have discussions, we have subcommittees that we're discussing this with.
Okay, so it wasn't approved by the whole board, yet there's a dollar figure up.
Diane, before it could be approved by the board, it had to be approved by the because that's the problem.
So I see how this is gonna be happening. It's not, it doesn't have to sit that. I'm sorry. Then you're all.
I have a motion.
What are you afraid of? What are you accusing them of? Mismanaging $20,000?
Yes.
Off the town? What are they told you?
You know what is mind-boggling to me?
May I? Excuse me, go ahead, Cheryl.
We have, okay, so listen, I mean, we're talking about 20,000, so that's just, I understand that, Tara, that it's $20,000, and that's, to me, it's more the process that I find difficult to swallow. But you know, we had a resident, a business owner come before us and say, hey, you're only paying attention to Main Street. On here, Richard is saying, you know, we've got businesses suffering, businesses suffering. You have businesses coming to the township committee saying, you're only paying attention to Main Street, help us. And they've been saying it through the whole course of the summer, through the whole course of the pandemic, where they don't have the space to eat, you know, to put tables outside. You know, it's on the one hand, we're saying, help us. On the other hand, we're not doing anything. I'm not sure. Look, we approved the SID, we'll move forward with the SID, but I think we're talking at, I think there's a lot of talking out of two sides of the mouth here. I think there are ways.
The SID is to help the businesses. So let's fund the SID. Let's let them help the businesses in the other parts of town. Let's let it get going.
But Tara, the point is you can do it without the SID as well. You didn't have to wait to the, I'm not saying we're not moving forward with the SID. What I'm saying is you didn't have to create the SID in order to help the businesses. There were creative ways that we helped businesses in on certain streets, but not throughout the township. But that's all. So if you want to take your roll call.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-19? Sorry, excuse me. Yes. May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-197?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein,
Yes, so long as the protocol is going to be improved from now on.
Ms. Prupus,
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
No, not under these circumstances. My vote is no.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg,
Yes.
Yeah.
Mayor, Mr. Foote has his hand up. If you're not going to address him, can you please let him know?
Okay.
Maybe
So
take
we're
one
gonna take it, we're gonna take a 3-minute break.
You're still gonna be, so you know, you'll still be heard. Excuse me, so you know, you'll still be heard on live stream.
We want to talk about the hallway.
Reservation or not. There's a lot of times when it comes to going to work. Talk to me. I was saying I had that. Don't bother me. You know, give me more than 3 hours notice, but I did. And then to find out, we're taking the money now. I mean, the IDs, but the question is, did they get the 5 for one seat location? Because when applied for, you apply for, how you apply if you haven't, he just does whatever he wants. But I'm just saying, it's getting uglier and uglier. And I think they want to make this a test case. This is going to be a test case. And if
three of them are meeting, then while they over.
Jeff, it is still being recorded on the hearing.
It is correct, yeah. Yes.
I think it's actually heated up quite, I think it's heated up quite a bit. I think it's the atmosphere is chilly, but the atmosphere is heated. It's hot chili. You know, it's a good debate on TV. Yeah, really.
Resolution 20-198 authorizes the temporary and extended closure of a section of Main Street. Mr. McDonald, would you?
Just turn your mic back on. This is just a resolution confirming the October through November closure. However, the township did state that it will be evaluating this on a week-to-week basis based on the efficacy and traffic and other criteria to see whether that continues through the month of November. However, this resolution will allow for it if it so is.
Thank you.
No, through, I'm sorry. Thank you, Nancy. Actually, through October to November.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-198?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is ordinance 2562-20. Mr. Wasserman is scheduled to sponsor this ordinance.
Ordinance 2563-20. Ordinance amending the Township of Millburn Development and Regulations zoning ordinance. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2563-20. As I previously stated, I'm sorry.
256220, which is the B4 restaurant.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I present for consideration an ordinance titled Ordinance Number 2562-20, an ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development and Regulations zoning ordinance. So as I was discussing before, the point of this ordinance was to make it easier for our existing restaurants to expand and to lower some of the barriers for other restaurants to come into vacant space. So that was the premise of of what we're trying to do here. Tonight is the time set. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and the final passage as advertised in accordance with the law. So in light of what many of our neighbors were concerned about, I'd actually like to make it a motion to table this for the moment and see if we can come up with a resolution to make sure that our neighbors on Broadway are dealt with fairly. I still think that this is something that our township should adopt. We want to make sure that we don't have extra high barriers for businesses to move into our town. As you can see during COVID, food businesses are an essential part of our township. People are drawn to Millburn. It's taken on a new kind of foodie experience. Just to tell you, the last time I was walking through Main Street, I was shocked to see so many people from outside of the area that were visiting us. So even though I really feel strongly about it, I also want to make sure that we take care of our residents on Broadway. We heard you, and so for that reason, I'd like to make a motion to table this for now.
I'll second that. I happen to agree with you. I think that although it's really important to provide an easier entree to businesses, it can't be to the detriment of our residents. So we have to try to figure out how to make it work.
Roll call?
Yeah, I made the motion, second, yeah.
Ms. Burstein? Oh,
Motion to table, yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda refers to Ordinance 2563-20. Committeewoman Burstein is scheduled to sponsor this.
An ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance was introduced on September 1st and previously advertised for second reading and a public hearing at this meeting. The ordinance proposes a change in the zoning pertaining to the Park Road and Park Circle area in the R4 district. A protest petition was filed with the clerk following introduction. Because the planning board has been delayed in its review of this ordinance for consistency with the master plan until tomorrow evening, October 7th, we were to consider an adjournment of the second reading and public hearing on this ordinance until our next meeting, which will be October 20th, in order to allow time for us to receive the report of the planning board. I have heard from a number of our constituents concerning this ordinance, and they've advised me that they've also reached out to my colleagues on the committee. I have a real concern with making a wholesale change to the zoning of a neighborhood without truly understanding all of the ramifications and impacts. I also object to the enactment of yet another ordinance without buy-in from the impacted residents. I don't know what each of my fellow committee members are thinking, but before we vote to adjourn the consideration of the ordinance to October 20th, I like to suggest that at this point we engage in a discussion concerning the status of the ordinance and what our next action with respect to it should be. So I guess first is, does anybody want to comment on where they think we're going with this?
Mayor, may I speak on this?
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. I've toured Park Road and Park Circle. I recently, last week, I met with one of the residents, Randy Faust, and I toured the street, and it is an incredibly beautiful street. The character of the street, the beauty of the street is amazing. And I really think that if if we passed a new zoning for that street, I really think that it would be a detriment, to the neighbors. And I think it would not be in the interest of the neighborhood or the township. And I also have concerns over the process of, what the process was that was followed here. So, and I've corresponded with many neighbors, and I don't think this proposed ordinance is in the interest of the township.
I will concur with Committeeman Wasserman. I also met with multiple of the neighbors, and I think that it's not the right move to rezone a piece of a block that's a part of another block. I also think it sets a terrible precedent moving forward in the township. So I would also ask that if we can just vote to rescind, remove this ordinance, vote it down, because without it going to the planning board, if that can be done, that would be a good solution, in my opinion.
Have anything to add?
No, I agree with Diana that if that process is allowed, the explanation to do that.
Tara, you really have to speak up if you could.
Sorry. I said I agree with Committeewoman Eglo, and that if there's a way to vote the ordinance down tonight, going to the planning board, we should go that route.
So in light of,
So in light of what has been discussed.
oh no, that's me, Mayor.
Yep. Carry on.
It's okay. In light of what has just been discussed, it strikes me that there is little purpose in having the planning board go through the exercise of determining the consistency of the ordinance with the master plan or engaging in a protest hearing. Accordingly, I move that ordinance 2563-20 be withdrawn from further consideration by the Township Committee, and that the clerk notify the planning board administrator tomorrow morning as to this action.
A second.
Ms. Gaddy, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this will not be presented to the planning board tomorrow night. This is done. Very good.
Ordinance 2564-20, Ms. Eglo is scheduled to sponsor this ordinance.
Procedure for passing ordinance on final reading. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2564-20, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 2 Oaklawn Road and in block 2404 lot 4. This ordinance is being proposed to authorize the acquisition of a permanent easement on 2 Oaklawn Road in order to enable the construction and maintenance of stormwater sewer facilities to address flooding to occur on that property. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage of advertising according to law.
I declare the hearing open.
There is someone on Zoom. Are you commenting on this ordinance, Liza DeBliss? If not, please lower your hand. Okay. Ms. DeBliss?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Are you commenting on this ordinance about the oak lawn?
No, I just wanted to comment on a previous thing and you missed me.
You know, ma'am, this is a public hearing. That was the only thing I was able to
No,
do.
it's the prior ordinance that was tabled. I just wanted to be clear that the street in question is Rawley, R-A-W-L-E-Y, not Rawway. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing that there's no comments further on this, I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title and pass on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus,
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg,
Yes. Does any committee member have an item of old business to address?
Actually, I do have one quick question. This would be for Kit. What happens if for some reason that safe ordinance does get, through court litigation rescinded? What happens to the money, the seed money, any monies that have been spent?
Well, I'd like to think about that and provide you with an answer rather than off the top of my head, but I think that it's legitimately spent. The ordinance is in effect, and until such time as a court orders otherwise, it's a legitimate expenditure. What happens to the money at a later date? I'd like to take a look at that question, if I may.
Yeah, that would be good to have at the next meeting, a solid answer to that. Thank you.
New business. Human Relations Committee. At our September 15th meeting, the Township Committee on further reflection decided it would be a better approach to broaden the public discussion concerning racial prejudice, discrimination, and related issues by the means of the establishment of a diverse committee with the mission of taking on a more comprehensive review of these matters. Since that time, I've had discussions with members of the West Orange Human Relations Committee. That's a name that is used by other municipalities for these kinds of organizations. It has been around since 1995, and their group and mission and role in the community is an 11-person council with mayoral and council appointments. Their mission is to develop policies and procedures for the elimination of all kinds of discrimination and educational programs that will aid in the elimination of discrimination. They have paid for programs to help their immigrant community know your rights. They sponsored the Pittsburgh Interfaith Vigil. And like our students, their students organized the Black Lives Matter sponsored march in June after George Floyd. They will be having a Zoom meeting on October 26th, which I plan to attend. I reached out to our coalition of interfaith leaders in Millburn Short Hills for their participation in this potential new group. Reverend Tolan of St. Stephen's has communicated to her entire board that this initiative is being handled by the Township Committee. I've researched other municipalities that populate their committees with high school students, police officers, Board of Ed representatives, and educators. Some have only one government official on their committees. Some have bankers. Some have real estate representatives. Some municipalities think that this need is so great that they believe racism is a public health crisis, and they have programs to address this as their #1 priority. I've also reached out to students who have shown a light on some of the issues facing our community. I've spoken to members of the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racism Task Force, Black Americans Millburn Short Hills, and I've even received some inquiries from residents that have raised their hand and wanting to participate in the mix. And I continue to have conversations, some scheduled next week, with members of the Anti-Racism Task Force. There are also moderators that facilitate these groups. Such a company is called Factuality. That was recommended by a nonprofit. They act as a facilitator to help identify the goals and objectives of the group and create meaningful dialogue. Additional individuals that have been recommended include Beth Zemsky and Kelly Bates, which I hope to contact next week. And they work on something called intercultural development inventory. I will continue to engage, speak with individuals, community representatives, and other organizations in the weeks ahead. I know there has been some discussion about this initiative being addressed within the CEDA Advisory Committee. As the CEDA chair since its inception, I believe that the goals and objectives of CEDA and its members has leaned towards the cultural and engagement and arts initiative. The Mill Wheel project was a huge success. We were working on a founding day celebration to engage residents when COVID hit. We had other events scheduled for a Memorial Day barbecue at the pool. Unfortunately, that also was canceled because of COVID. CEDA is now working successfully on the selection of a Taylor art sculpture installation for our community in conjunction with the Art Advisory Committee. Currently, we're reviewing 5 finalists. These projects are all focused on art and community engagement participation. This new committee that we will be looking at policy and procedures to address the issues of racial prejudice, equality, fairness, and balance in a meaningful way, including the flying of flags and a process and procedure. The goals and objectives are very different than CEDA, and I believe worthy of a separate committee. Thank you. Anybody like to add any comment to my insights with respect to this new committee and CEDA?
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
What is your time frame, or what do you think your time frame is to establish the committee? Because you're doing a lot of work and I appreciate it.
I would really hope that over the next 4 to 8 weeks that we would have my goals and expectations, and please would be to hopefully have some kind of mission statement to share with the committee in the next couple of weeks, or at the next meeting in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, as a mission statement of the organization. And then,
wait a minute. Well, who's going to create a mission statement?
Well, I'm going to asset gather all the information from some of the other committees, and then have the committee, our committee, look at that as a potential, or we can populate the committee and then or have a facilitator work with us. I don't have all the answers yet to see which mode would be the best way to proceed. I'm still in my asset gathering phase. I'm quite honestly not sure which is the best way to drive the mission or look at the need. And I feel that the first step is really to communicate with as many residents, stakeholders, and other communities in our area, as well as across the country, that have similar organizations that address some of the things that we spoke about 2 weeks ago. And that would be my hope and expectation, is to start the dialogue and then begin to formulate what exactly the bandwidth and the mandates and the expectations would be for this community group.
But I think that's something that should come from the committee as a whole and not necessarily from you individually.
So it could be a list of menu of things that are maybe areas of concentration. Yes, that could very well be. And then I would, I'm not sure. I appreciate your thought and expectation is it should come from the committee. The committee that would soon to be populated. Yes.
I think part of what you said got cut off, so I'm not quite sure I heard everything.
I asked you if you thought that the mission and the goals and objectives of the committee should come from the participants?
I think it should come from the township committee, actually.
Okay, that's my question. So you think it should come from the township committee, not the participants?
Correct.
Okay.
I think we're creating a committee with a specific a goal in mind.
So in the next 2 to 4 weeks, some kind of framework of the mission or the resolution you think should come from us?
Sort of the mission, I would say. Yeah.
The mission. Okay. Well, I encourage all my fellow TDC members to share with me their thoughts so that I could accumulate this for further discussion.
I'd love to actually, I'm sorry, Diane, one more second. I would actually love to hear what you've heard and learned from the other townships or municipalities that you've spoken with in terms of what those missions are and what they've asked their committees to do, or what they're focused on.
Well, like I mentioned, I spoke to West Orange pretty extensively, and I've looked at some research. Most of these commissions have been around a long time, since the 90s, and some of them have morphed a bit from their initial purpose. So I'm I've got a lot of information that I'm just kind of plowing through.
I didn't expect you to do it now, but just along the way.
I'm sorry?
But I didn't expect you to provide all that information now or to give us a summary now, but at some point it would be interesting to have that conversation.
Well, I feel that it is my job to inform the committee and inform the public in terms of what I've done so far in the last couple of weeks. So, and I will continue to do so. And
I have a question. Are you planning on putting this as an ad hoc or as a fully formed committee that would have volunteer interest forms and I think it's a big task. I think there'll be 2 new people on the committee, and I think as Ms. Morgan said at the beginning of the meeting, we could rush this through, or we could let the 2 new people who will be on the committee see if they're going to want to serve. And what's your other overarching goal for how this would be on the course of town?
I didn't get that far yet, to be honest. I would welcome everybody's input to how you think it should be populated, with whether it should be, well, seated is by resolution.
It's an ad hoc.
It's an ad hoc.
And I think, its intent was to be more than art, somehow it morphed into art, and, that wasn't, I have the original mission statement here. I'm not going to read it again because, it was to be as inclusive and diversity in the township. And we chose to start through an art committee. And I don't know what happened this year. Where did people show up? The original people. But I think that it's important to know if this is going to be populated in the ad hoc, then whoever gets on there, their term would end at the end of this year. Or should it be just waiting till next year and whoever the new mayor is and the new committee would see how they want to deal with this topic within the township?
Well, to answer both questions, the whereas for CETA, in order to assist local cultural organizations in highlighting programs that recognize and showcase the diversity in culture and arts in Millburn Township. So, and with respect to, you could just extend, if you populate how you populate it, you could just give those individuals the same way with the board of trustees for that you just extend to include the end of 2020 and 2021 for those that were serving a year, and then you have another additional couple of months to just get some traction before the year is out.
What would you put volunteer interest form request in?
Yes, I believe that would be the best way to go, and I think this would also volunteer interest forms and why people wanted to participate in this committee and their backgrounds, why they believe that they would be a good candidate.
And may I weigh in on this? I also want to applaud you for all the work that you're doing, Mayor. You spent hours and hours, I see, reaching out to different towns. But I also think it's very important that we throw our net wide and far, and that we have a lot of different stakeholders to engage some of these issues. But as I just said, I think there's a lot of good work to be done here. We're an inclusive, town. And I think that we want to make sure that we engage all of these important issues.
And I think the volunteer interest form would be a great way to see a lot of people in the community, but you have to start putting out feelers immediately if you want to try to get this done before your term ends. So that's another reason why it might be reasonable to start gathering people and doing it next year. I don't know.
Well, I've already received a couple of inquiries from interested participants, and so
Do you want to report back at the next meeting?
yeah, and I don't.
And you have those people fill out the form and have Christine share them with us.
Yeah. Christine, how long is the process? How long is the process for a volunteer interest form? A month? So we get turnaround within 60 days, 30 days? Once you put the call out?
Yeah, once you put it out, I think that would be a reasonable amount of time, like 30 to 60 days.
Right.
It's reasonable.
Okay. All right, so it's October 6th. Okay. Well, does any other committee members have any questions or any thoughts? Or if you do, please email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions or welcome your input, as well as any community members. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
No. The committee is now entering into closed session as previously approved in resolution 20-196. So you will immediately adjourn after our closed session.
Do we have to take off people from Zoom, or do we have to go back onto a different Zoom?
Correct, Cheryl.
Carol, there's a Zoom in the
Separate Zoom.
In that same.
I'll send